Community and identity mapping reflection. Shelved as South Asian, Bangladeshi diaspora, whiteness, critical race theory, and public libraries in suburban Toronto by Wasifa Nosheen. The Bangladeshi diasporic experience in suburban Toronto offers us a concrete way to see whose identities and histories are legible in library systems and whose are blurred or absent. As a racialized immigrant and post-colonial community, Bangladeshis are frequently categorized into broad South Asian and multicultural categories, even though their trajectories are shaped by their distinct liberation, struggles, migration routes, and class and religious dynamics. Thinking alongside themes of the first 3 weeks makes it harder to see these gaps as accidental and recognizing them as patterned effects of power. The Bangladeshi communities are often represented indirectly through South Asian shelves, generalized multicultural resources, and settlement-oriented services for newcomers. Multicultural toolkits for Canadian public libraries have historically encouraged grouping language and cultural materials under broad ethno-cultural minority labels and building shared regional multilingual pools, which can inadvertently flatten differences among South Asian communities. There may be some Bengali language titles, sure, or South Asian fiction and film. However, materials on the 1971 Liberation War, diasporic Bangladeshi feminist writing, or narratives of Bangladeshi life in Toronto tend to be sparse or absent. Research on Bangladeshi immigrants in Canada shows that public libraries matter for early settlement, providing internet access, children's resources, and basic information. However, community members also lean heavily on informal networks and ethnic media and community organizations for more profound cultural and political knowledge. When library systems do not reflect specific Bangladeshi histories, languages, or gendered experiences, this suggests that the community's real knowledge resides elsewhere. Multicultural policy documents often frame libraries as public good institutions that welcome everyone and support democracy by expanding access and representation. Applied to Bangladeshi communities, inclusion can then be equated with grouping them alongside other South Asians, adding a small Bengali section, or hosting generic South Asian heritage events. Shuva argues that engagement is contingent and shaped by how well services align with Bangladeshi priorities, constraints, and power relations. Week 2's discussion of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission calls to action and Ahmed's notion of nonperformativity sharpens this critique. Just as institutions can invoke reconciliation while leaving colonial arrangements intact, libraries can invoke multiculturalism while leaving untouched the classificatory and organizational logistics. Building and sustaining multilingual collections is a documented challenge. Limited staff capacity for non-official languages, inconsistent romanization, and discovery tools not optimized for non-Latin scripts can render Bengali materials effectively invisible unless users already know they exist. Service design and policies also shape who feels welcome. Settlement programs may assume comfort in mixed gender spaces, rely heavily on English language group discussion, or be scheduled at times that exclude shift workers, elders, or caregivers, privileging some segments of the Bangladeshi community while sidelining others. Critical race theory and whiteness studies helps reframe these issues as systemic. Espinal et al. Argue that inclusion cannot be achieved by inserting diverse bodies into white spaces without decentering whiteness as the norm. For Bangladeshi diasporic communities, deeper institutional logics measure them against white Anglophone, often middle-class norms of literacy, behavior, and fit. Ahmed's concept of nonperformativity suggests libraries' claims about serving diverse or multicultural communities can generate institutional credit without requiring changes in budget, governance, policy, or cataloging. This mapping, to me, raises questions more than answers, which feels important to hold on to rather than resolve too quickly. Such questions include: how might collection development and description move beyond generic South Asian labels toward community-led approaches that foreground Bangladeshi histories, including feminist and queer perspectives? My next question would be, what would it mean concretely to share decision-making power and resources with Bangladeshi community organizations, not only inviting them to participate in pre-designed programs, but involving them in setting priorities for collections, classification changes, and governance? And my last question I leave you with is how to recognize and resist the ways whiteness operates as an unmarked default in library and information studies, shaping ideas of good communication, neutral classification, and professional conduct so that Bangladeshi patrons and staff are not continually asked to remake themselves to fit norms that were never designed with them in mind. Keeping these questions open is one way of staying accountable to the community and to the structural nature of the issues this mapping has surfaced.